Senate Minority Leader Susan Kent has long advocated for extending paid leave benefits to all employees who need to care for themselves or their family members. She joined me to discuss this and other proposals that DFL members hope will be included in the final Jobs and Economic Development package. You have been a champion for paid family and medical leave for several years now. Who would this legislation impact and how is it paid for?
Good morning, Shannon, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation as always. You know, you and I have talked about paid family and medical leave over the years, and the biggest part of the answer to this question is ultimately everyone. Everybody at some point in their lives has some need to take time to care either for themselves or a family member, and that's what this is designed to do. Whether it's parental leave, like with the birth or adoption of a new child, either for either parent, whether it's one's own major illness or injury, think cancer treatments where you just have to take time off because those treatments are really hard. But once you've gone through them and you're doing well, you can go back to work. Or a major injury, similar sort of thing. Or if it's a family member who is going through similar situation. Or if it's our parents as they are in their last months and days. Those are the kinds of people that it will help. At the same time, it will be helpful in bigger issues like with small businesses. Small businesses would love to be able to offer these kinds of benefits to their workers to be able to compete in terms of attracting and retaining really great workers, people who are valuable to themselves and their customers. But it's just too expensive because their only real option is either to self-finance it or to use disability, which is much more expensive. This would be a much more competitive process. And then ultimately, whether it's the child care system or our caregiving system, which is so stretched for workforce, this would provide some relief there.
And then, so basically, does it work like a cooperative or an insurance plan, and that's where the cost savings are, but all these people pay in and then they use the benefit however they need it?
That is exactly right. And it is designed so that employers can either pay the full amount or they can share it with the employee. That either way is fine. It's a very modest, it's a sliding scale kind of a thing. We've had small business people who have 30 employees estimate it would cost them about $5,000 a year if they took on the whole cost. And, again, they would pay a lot more to do that with disability policies. And you're exactly right. By having everybody in, it completely lowers the threshold and the costs for everybody. And what's interesting is this has really been stress tested in the past year in other states that already have this. So we went through the pandemic where a lot of people needed a lot of time off for their own illnesses or for family members and loved ones. And in the states where they had this, they saw it still worked very smoothly. The costs did not skyrocket in a way that were not at all. I mean, they were able to absorb it just fine.
The House companion bill is moving, but there were no hearings granted in the Republican-led Senate. The DFL held an informational hearing last month, and the Republicans were invited to participate, but to no avail. Why do you think Republicans are generally not on board?Oh,
that's probably a really long answer. I would put it into two buckets. One is and we're seeing this across a number of issue areas this session. There's just a real resistance to consider new ways of doing things. There's a real keep things going the way they have been. But what we've learned in this pandemic is that what we've had really hasn't been working for too many people. And what I've said is that when we do not offer a safety net for people and in their jobs and in their families, often it's women, but certainly it is Minnesotans who become that safety net. And that's not fair. We saw women step out of the workforce in just a dramatic way. And so we need to get past the resistance to change and take some of these things on. The other thing I would say is, there has been resistance from some sectors of the business community, which I think is interesting because the big corporations are doing this on their own because they're large enough to be able to absorb all of that process, right? And but we've seen this in a number of issues where businesses are saying, oh no, this is going to be disruptive, this is going to be bad for business, it's going to cost us too much. There's a lot of fear. There may be an inherent risk averse nature, and I say this as somebody who came out of the private sector, but I just encourage everybody to really envision what this can be like. The cost is modest. It's much less than trying to do it on your own. One of the statistics in all of this that really drives home the point to me is that 25 to 30% of women go back to work 10 to 14 days after giving birth. And there is not a single woman in this world who chooses to go back to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. They do that because they don't have a choice. And they do that because far too many employers are either not able to offer it or just, won't, right? We need to provide that resource and support for our families.
So to your point about the businesses who are already doing this, Market Watch last week wrote about retailers like Target, Amazon, and Walmart now having introduced paid family leave. Since October, federal workers have access to a benefit, as do Minnesota state employees. Do you think there will possibly be a groundswell of support as this becomes more normalized, as more people are aware of places where they can have this benefit?
I think you absolutely encapsulate how this dynamic is going. And I would also add in there, as more and more states are offering it and everyone realizes that, hey, wow, this actually could work. Yes, again, larger businesses don't do this out of the goodness of their hearts. They do it because it's good business. And they know that it's expensive to lose and have to recruit new employees. Turnover is expensive. And so if they have good workers, they want to keep them. And they know it's a competitive advantage for them to have that as an incentive for people to come to them. So yes, I think as more businesses do this, as more people have the chance to really see the benefit of it and how it works, we're going to see, as is the case, eventually people come around to these things and they become adopted. But in the meantime, people are waiting. People need the support now. We should just go ahead and recognize that this will be fine. It will work for businesses and for workers and the people who are relying on their care. And we should go ahead and do this.
Now, had this had movement in the Senate, it would likely have been included in the Jobs and Economic Development omnibus budget bill, which passed the Senate last week with virtually no DFL support. What are some of your caucus's concerns with that bill?
It's reflective, I think, of a lot of the budget bills that we're seeing at this stage of session. The Republicans, because we have a surplus that is largely one-time money, that really limits how it can be spent. It can't be spent in areas like our schools where you have to hire teachers who would be there longer than 1 year. It just simply doesn't work in the way our budget is constructed and the way our entities have to use those funds. So the concern from our caucus is that it's not honest budgeting, that that they're trying to use gimmicks and shifts to try to balance the budget and pass these bills, but it's really not serving the people of Minnesota. We firmly believe that these budget bills really reflect our priorities and that the bills that are being offered by the Senate Republicans, as in the case of the jobs bill, just don't do what they need to do. Frankly, the jobs bill doesn't have a lot of bad stuff in it. It's not that we're deeply opposed to what's in it. It's just that it falls way short of the mark at a time coming out of this pandemic where Minnesotans are counting on us to step up and do the right thing.
So one other question on that point. On the Senate floor, DFL lead of the Jobs Committee, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, expressed concern for the lack of economic development for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and women in Minnesota. What more could be done in that area?
Well, paid family and medical leave and sick leave would be a good start, for example. It is inadequate on wage theft protections. And it just doesn't make the investments that we know are needed by people who are historically underserved. Through just the structures of the way things have been done, have less access to capital and to startup resources and to the networks that those who have traditionally benefited from our system have had. And so that is how we have these inequities perpetuated. And that is why we need to be intentional, particularly coming out of the pandemic, when we realize that this pandemic has not been borne equally by all Minnesotans. There are those who've been just fine. And in many cases, as we've seen, there are some companies that have profited amazingly well. On the other hand, it's really clear in the numbers from our budget forecasts and from our economic and jobs numbers that job losses and income losses have been borne by lower income workers, people of color, women, particularly women of color. We need to support them because they've already had a really rough year, and we need to help them get caught back up so that this does not become a lifelong drag on their economic well-being.
Senate Minority Leader Susan Kent, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon.